The most profound part of it all was that I continued to choose the experience of feeling lack over and over again.
You were not just a victim of circumstances or a victim of patterns, but rather unconscious of the non-choices that you were making.
At any given time in your life, you choose which one you want to experience. Fun stuff.
It is fun.
Super weird.
It is weird. But if it was boring and normal...
Yeah. Would you even be here listening? And welcome to Love Always Self. I'm Shyra.
Hi, y'all. I'm Karista, and thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Love Always Self. I kind of thought you forgot your name for a second there.
I paused. It took me a second. I was like, wait, who am I? What's my name?
Well, as promised from the last episode, we are back here to discuss and to hear for the first time this most recent past life regression session that you experienced.
Yeah. So I have come into an agreement with my therapist that we're going to, and this didn't come from like out of nowhere. This came to me in a pretty profound message that I wasn't expecting at the time, right? So should I tell that part of the story?
It's up to you.
Okay. And so when one of my guides came in and gave me that information, and I contacted her about us working together for her to actually document whatever is going to come through. Now, I had no idea and still don't have any idea of the future as far as like what's going to be revealed in the sessions.
You can't tell your future?
Not a fortune teller. That would be nice. Lottery numbers. So, you know, we weren't sure if we were going to go into that session, but the events leading up to that session, we were catching up from me being out for several weeks, you know, due to the trip. See previous episode. And, you know, honestly was like at first it was more just a therapy session, right? Like, what have I been up to? Where am I at now? How am I feeling? That kind of stuff, right? But then I told her about a recent dream that I had. And I told her what happened in that dream. And I don't mind sharing the dream.
The dream was pretty nuts.
It was pretty nuts. Yeah. So rapid fire on this part, just because I want to get to the meat and potatoes here. But in the dream, and I've already told Carrie this dream. So I told her the next morning, honestly, or the next evening, right? And so in my dream, and now mind you, I was coming through still all the symptoms of me having the flu, basically, right? So I was still experiencing the temperature issues, the congestion, it was starting to move into my chest, and my breathing was becoming hard. So while I was sleeping that night, my dream was basically I was on this like path, like a bridge, and this bridge kind of like does this thing where it tees off, but it's still a bridge. And it's hard to say that I was in a room because the space was so big, but I just remember holding this luggage, and I'm giving you kind of a short condensed version of this, but I was holding this luggage, and instead of the zipper, it was like this like light around the trace of the luggage. And I just remember this feeling of like everything in this luggage I'm so excited about, because it was filled with all of my memories of this real life, and all the emotions. And I remember it being really tied to the emotions that I experienced in this life. And I had this like giddy feeling of like, I'm going to share this, and I'm so excited. Look what I learned.
I did good.
I did so good. And as I'm in this line, there's this guy there that's present, and he's, you know, this very like, it's a hard word to explain because he was very astute. He was very much the boss of the room, right? Because there was all these other people. I don't even know if they were people or not, but there was all these other people like on these like control board type things that they were manipulating. And this guy there was no feeling towards him. It It was nothing positive. It was nothing negative. It was just very neutral, right? Like, he's the boss and whatever he says goes. And that's it. Like, I didn't have any feeling one way or the other about it. And matter of fact, at that point in time, I wasn't feeling anything negative, period. I felt safe. I felt comfortable. I just felt excited. And I felt I was in presence of all there is to know, right? Okay. And so as I'm approaching this guy to give him my package of amazingness, and before I could even hand him this luggage, he basically tells me, did you accomplish everything you were supposed to accomplish? Did you learn everything you were supposed to learn? And I looked at him and I was like, oh yeah, 100%, right? And he looked at me and was like, are you sure? And I was like, uh-huh. But I could feel the lack of confidence in my response, right? And I knew that he knew that I felt that, and he was feeling the same thing. It was almost like any feeling I was having or thought that I was having, he knew what that was. And so when he said, are you sure? And even though I felt that exchange, immediately he flashes me into a very real in my life conversation that I had with one of my employees. And it was before he became one of my employees and he was applying. And anyway, I don't want to get into that because that's personal. But what happened was after that flashback of a very real memory, I was then given the full visual of what happened to my employee since he's had the job and how it's impacted his life in the positive direction. And I could feel the emotional gratitude, all of that. So then I kind of came from that scenario where I'm now crying back into this space. And he looks at me and he says, there's still more for you to do. And I, at that point, decided to argue with him. And I said, no, I'm done. I don't want to go back. And I told him, I'm absolutely, no, I did it. I did what I was supposed to do. I don't want to go back. And then he looks at the guy at the control center and says, you need to drop the temperature. And I said, no. I'm serious. Like, don't send me back. And then he tells the guy, no, you need to drop it further. And as soon as that little dude touched that dial, I sprung up out of bed and I was choking. I was choking severely. So when I told Gary this story, what was your first response?
But did you die?
Yeah. We're not sure.
I asked if you were wearing your watch.
No, I wasn't.
Be like, what was your oxygen level or your heart rate or anything like that? Did something beep at you? And then I told you the next night you needed to wear it.
Yeah, and I did. Yeah. I did wear it. So I honestly, like, I'm not sure. My therapist had the same response, to be honest with you. When I sprung out of that situation and I was choking profusely, I was also crying severely. And every ounce of memory towards that scenario, I remember the whole thing. It was so real. It was so visceral. And, honestly, like, I still question if that's what happened. Did I have an NDE? Right? Like, is that what happened?
We've determined that you won't know for a very long time.
Well, I won't know for a very long time. I'm sticking around. You know what I'm saying?
Holding you to that.
So that was very interesting, but that also sparked us into, because I told her, I said, I wonder if that guy, and I can't stop wondering this, but I wonder if that guy would come through in a PLR, right? So that sparked us into the PLR. Let's do it in that session this past weekend. Leading up to it, because it's actually all connected somehow. And this is the part that's so weird. So the day before I was supposed to go, I had sent a message and I was like, crap, what time am I supposed to come to the session? Because it's been several weeks and I forgot what time we were supposed to do it. And she asked if I could push it to Sunday. And I was like, actually, that's brilliant because I needed to unstage this room from being a guest bedroom, make it back into a podcast, run to our, our warehouse and do all these things, right? And I was like, that actually works out. Saturday turns out to be now goes into one of my favorite days. Somehow all that work that we had to do here at home turned out to be amazing. And
which is funny because Friday you were freaking out about it.
I was freaking out about it on Friday. And then Saturday happens and like
everything falls into place.
Everything fell into place, right? Then Sunday comes about and and my husband was having a Father's Day get together with our kid and my parents and one of his friends, and he's going to grill out. And so we had people coming. So I spent the morning just kind of gathering things and putting them, where they need to be, because I still had like luggage stuff like laying everywhere. And I go to start my car and it's just flashes of little lights and dashboard symbols. And I've never seen a car do that before because I haven't had one this nice before, to be honest with you. And so, or high tech. And I was like, what the heck? And then I called you because we have the same car, because why not besties? And so I called you and I was like, have you ever seen this? Like, what is that? Did my car just die? Like, and she's like looking it up in the owner's manual for me because, why would I ever do that? And you're like, oh, it's just probably the battery. And I was like, oh, great. So now I have to figure out how to get the car out of the garage so we could jump it. Didn't know anything about jump kits, so now I do. So don't comment about that. But
I didn't know.
I seriously, thank you, bro. So we were supposed to be picking up an umbrella stand, and that's why we were going to take my car. And I only had an hour between doing that and going to my session. And so it felt chaotic. Yeah. And so I get into the car, my husband's car now, because mine's not starting. I get into my husband's car and I'm heading down the highway and I'm trying to like get off the thought that my car didn't start and that I'm going to have to figure out a time to go get a battery, right? Because it's on a Sunday and I'm like, well, is AutoZone open? What time is it open till? Blah, blah, blah. Like I'm thinking about that. And then I was like, wow, Shyra, like what if you end up doing a PLR today? Like you got to get out of this mindset. You're not calm at all. And, and mind you, there's no traffic. For the first time in I don't even know how long.
Everybody was lunching and brunching.
There was no traffic on 183. Like that's like, what? And so the drive was easy. And I remember thinking that, like, wow. And then I was like, hey guides, everything's going to be okay. I'm giving you permission to come through on this PLR. And as soon as I had that thought, because I didn't say it out loud, I just had the thought. As soon as I had that thought, I saw in the car to the right of me, 444 at the end of someone's license plate. Just randomly glanced over and saw that. And I was like, ooh, is that confirmation? Could have been a coincidence. Who knows, until the PLR. So I just wanted y'all to know the prefaces of like what happened prior to me getting to that appointment, because it plays into effect. So we go into the PLR and I go under the hypnosis. And the first thing that I experience is, it's guided and I look down and I notice that I'm wearing like these tan colored sandals, the ones with just the two single straps over the feet, right? And I realize I'm Caucasian. So anybody watching this on YouTube right now knows that I'm not. Only half. But my color of my skin is darker. And so I realize that I'm Caucasian. I also realize that I'm wearing a tunic that's kind of shedded at the bottom. And
fringe.
And I'm a man. And I'm going down this gravel road that's surrounded by very tall, not brick, but rock walls on each side. And I'm like towing with my hands. I'm like pushing a wheelbarrow with cotton in it. And there's several questions that are asked at this point. And one of the questions that the therapist is asking me, kind of guiding me through this PLR, was asking me, am I married? And I was like, yes. And she was like, do you know the soul of the person that you're married to? And I chuckled because I knew exactly who it was. And then she asked me if I had children. And I said, yes, I have a daughter, but she's not here. She's learning. She's training up at the palace at the top of the hill. And she asked if I had a son or if I had any other children. I said, yes, I have a son and he's here with me. And she was like, well, is he not in school? And I said, no, he has to work with me. And she said, well, how am I feeling? And I was like, irritated. And I explained that I'm just kind of fast forwarding through the questions. Otherwise, this is going to be a very long episode. But like the gist of what I learned in that past life was I was not happy with my circumstances of I got married, I had children, I'm working myself to the ground. I don't like where I live, and I don't like what I do for a living. And all things that I have very much grappled with in this life.
Yeah.
And I end up being very irritated with my wife, and it seems as though that my wife has lost any type of respect of the type of man that I am. And there's obviously a disconnect there. I loved my family, but I just didn't want to be where I was anymore. And so my irritation with my situation in that lifetime was playing out in a disgruntled relationship with my wife. It was very profound to feel all those feelings, right? And to have some kind of connection to it in some way, right?
It being relatable.
Right? So then I see my death, basically, as in I'm seeing it from first person, right? So for any of you that plays video games out there, first person is you don't see your face or anything, but you can look down and see your hands and legs and all that stuff. So I'm seeing it from that perspective, right? And I am taking some kind of cylinder object, and it's got a grinder at the top, but when you start turning it, it cuts open whatever that cylinder is. I'm assuming it's some kind of a way to open cans, but I don't even think they had cans. Anyway, I don't know. So I don't know what it was, but it was sharp, and I wouldn't let my wife do it because it was dangerous. And I wouldn't let my son do it because I didn't want him to cut himself. But then she says something in the kitchen, and it irritated me, and I turned it really hard, and I slit my wrist. And I asked for a cloth to wrap around my wrist, and she's not moving because she's just not looking at me, and she's irritated. And then I fall to the ground and I start losing consciousness. And then that's when, and I hear my son yelling, "Mom, Mom," over and over again. And I believe that was my death. Because at that point, I then exit the body, and I'm now greeted by what I would presume is some kind of, I don't even know. There was these very tall beings that had these spears, and the spear was made of light. And I was looking at me, this version of me, staring into a mirror, but from a profile angle. The mirror itself was the flower of life.
Okay.
But the actual print that you would see in the flower of life was made up of, I almost thought it was like electricity, but it actually looked more like what you see when you're looking into a pool that's sunny and you see that light like move about in the water. It looked like that.
Okay.
And she asked, "What is that?" And they said, "It's a portal, and that you can go back into the PLR at any point in time, look for this mirror and stare into it, and it will guide you into asking any questions that you have going forward." So it was like I had this like long roundabout way to get there, but then I got there, and then they were like, "Start here next time," basically. But there was a time in the PLR, I haven't listened back to the recording because literally it was just yesterday. And so I haven't listened back to the recording yet, because like the last time when I went back and listened to the recording, it was not in the same order in which I experienced things.
Yeah.
So I need to do that. So I'm kind of all over the place in explaining this right now because I actually don't remember right off the gate, like what timeline, my therapist experienced with talking to me.
Yeah.
But I recall having a conversation with what I refer to as an oversoul of me. I recall it being I recall this oversoul of me being very direct and I didn't get any sense of irritation, but I myself was irritated by it, if that makes sense. And I was saddened by what I was listening to. But the most profound part of it all was the fact that I continued to choose the experience of feeling lack over and over and over again when I don't have to. So the way they showed this to me was, let's say you took a picture of this video that you're watching on YouTube. Go watch it on YouTube if you're listening on audio platforms. But say like you freeze frame this right here. And then you take a copy or a screenshot of this and you paste it 15 times on a single sheet.
Okay.
Okay. And on the first copy paste you saw, I'm smiling. The second copy paste you saw, I'm crying. So nothing else has changed but
your expression,
my expressions, or the emotion in that expression. The next time is laughing. The next one is whatever, shock. The way it was explained to me is that at any moment of any freeze frame, at any given time in your life, you choose which one you want to experience, but they're all playing out simultaneously. But it's up to you.
It's like picking off of a menu.
It was fucking cold.
It's like picking.
It was so cold.
It's like, okay, so I'm thinking of the nail salon. It's like picking a color.
Yeah. And me, Oversoul, was just like nonchalant about it. Like, just, you have a choice. Just pick. It's all playing out no matter what. It's up to you on what you want to experience. And like, kind of crass about it, you know? Like, not crass in any kind of cuss language or anything, but just very like, I'm over here from this crazy perspective of every soul and every life you've ever lived that's all still playing out at the same time and all different possibilities, probabilities, and yada yada. And just, you know.
I mean, to higher self, it's more simple. It's simplified.
Yeah. Now, there was an aspect of me that was connected to that wasn't quote unquote oversoul, right? But just a piece of said. Mm-hmm. And that aspect was like, or it was talking to a guide that was talking to that aspect. This is a weird moment to talk about.
Yeah.
So
it's a little meta.
It's very meta. And that guide was like, you just keep picking lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, this experience of lack. And when asked why, because to me, apparently, it is extremely entertaining and sometimes frustrating that I don't choose or get through it and find my way out of it.
Well, that's probably why you keep having the repeated experiences in different lifetimes, is because just you keep hitting the speed bump, the same
damn speed bump. Mm-hmm. So I come out of this.
And I just got the visual, too, that rather than going around, it's like in a parking lot, rather than going around the speed bumps, you're like, I got to go over the speed bumps.
You know?
And I see like your higher self just being like, God, just go right around it. Why are you?
I mean, I guess doing? If that's what you want to choose, you know, like, yeah.
Again with the speed bumps, you're spilling your drink everywhere.
I know. Like, get a cup holder for God's sakes.
Girl,
you know?
I'd be mad too.
Oh my gosh. And I remember like I started crying under my mask because I was just so frustrated with myself at that point. Like, why on earth do I keep choosing this bullshit? And then it was like, yo, but like getting in the car after I called you, driving home, it took 20 minutes. I knew that at the end of the day, there's no separation from that aspect of me and me. It is all connected, which means if that aspect of me has a choice, so do I. Mm-hmm. And if the next frame of my life is going to be a smile, then that's what I'm going to do. If it's going to be joy, I'm going to choose that. If it's going to be relaxation, I'll choose that. If it's going to be irritation over freaking CPA, I'll choose that. You know what I'm saying?
So it's more about the coming into awareness that you are choosing this.
Correct.
You are not just a victim of circumstances or a victim of patterns.
Right.
You can be.
Yeah.
And you maybe have been, but maybe not so much a victim as you once thought, but rather just unconscious of the non-choices that you were making.
That's right. That's right. So I found myself on a newfound mission that I'm going to get myself out of whatever lack mentality mindset that I've put myself in and lifetime after lifetime. And we're going to talk to said non-emotional guy.
That's why your car wouldn't start. That's why we had to get a new CPA. That's why we struggled getting this whole setup going.
That's exactly.
You're like, I'm going to choose another point of view.
We're going to choose another point of view.
And the universe is like, here you go. Opportunities.
Opportunities. Are you sure? They do.
Man. All right, let's see.
Okay. You know, and that was one, going back to the 444 comment, during the PLR, one of the guides that came through again, and I saw them in the last PLR I had. That was the one with it almost looks like diamonds as peacock feathers coming out with this like ray of light. It was weird. It's very see-through person made of light. If
you haven't watched that or listened to it, I don't remember. It may have only been audio.
Might have been,
not 100% sure. We'll link it below so you can check that out along with mine, the episode about my PLR session, and then we'll also link in the interview session with Barbara.
Yeah, she's great. And I love that she brings the level of skepticism with her. I think that's perfect, right? Because we can go very woo all we want to, right? But at least I have somebody that will ask the questions because they have that skepticism a little bit, right? Like full belief in stuff, but also like brings a level of skepticism to the table, which I appreciate that. So I had to deal with a little bit of self-judgment on my ride home. Carried into my afternoon, like judging myself of the experience that I had, what came through, what was said. That guide that came through from the last PLR that I had, and he mentioned that he continues to show me signs of 444 when I need to change my perspective to help me on this journey of me getting out of whatever mindset that I'm in at that point. And I did not know that. And so that's was helpful. Profound. Right.
Can you please let us know what you mean by the sequential numbers? Like, what means what?
I always ask that to my guides, and I don't feel like I get clear answers, and that was very clear.
So if I think you need to shift your perspective, can I just text you 444?
Yeah, please. Go for it. You know, I think that's a solid idea. They work through us, too. So... drop them thoughts right in there, and here you go.
I look forward to hearing more as you progress through the sessions with her.
I agree.
It'll be really interesting.
I agree.
I still think we should do one together but separate. I think that would be fascinating.
Right. But they have to ask very specifically, like, talk to me about the lifetime where you and the soul of Carrie.
Yes. We'll look at the mirror together, the portal mirror.
Look into the mirror.
We'll hold hands and say, pick one of our lives, our shared lives.
Exactly. Fun fact, shortly after that PLR, I was watching a YouTube video, and the guy mentions that the flower of life can be, if you meditate staring into the pattern of the flower of life, that is a gateway for you to receive information. I'd never heard that before. And yet that happened literally the night after, like the night that I
saw that YouTube video after.
Yeah, after. I was like, that's validation. That's cool. So anyway, fun stuff.
It is fun.
Super weird.
It is weird. But if it was boring and normal,
Yeah. Would you even be here listening?
Exactly. Thank you.
Would you even be on this channel or this podcast? Oh my goodness.
Well, speaking of keeping it weird, we would love for you to go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. We want to make sure that we get all the content out to you and keep everything weird for you.
Yeah, why not?
If you want to get weirder, you can find us on social medias, on YouTube Shorts, Facebook, Instagram, and the TikTok.
Right. Even weirder, we have a website.
It's lovealwaysself.com, where you can find all of our weird stuff that we use on a regular basis to host this podcast and to play with our woo.
Yeah, lots of great modalities on our Amazon storefront.
So if you want to keep it weird in your household, you should check out lovealwaysself.com.
Absolutely. And until the next very weird moment,
don't forget to love first,
love last,
and love always.
Bye, everybody.
Keep it weird.
Hey, listener, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us in this moment. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we look forward to our next connection.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow to stay notified of new content from Love Always Self. If you have any questions or topics you'd like for us to discuss, please hit us up on any of our social media platforms linked in the show notes below.
I'm Karista.
And I'm Shyra.
And until next time, remember to love first,
love last,
and love always. Love Always Self podcast is meant for entertainment purposes only. We do not make any warranties about the completeness, reliability, and accuracy of the information presented in this podcast. Any action you choose to take upon the information in this podcast is strictly done so at your own risk, and we will not be held liable for any losses and damages in connection with the use of our podcast. Any and all medical concerns should be addressed with a licensed healthcare provider, as well as any questions that may be derived from the information discussed in this podcast.